In this video I will show you how to use .NET Core 1.1 with Angular2 and DevExtreme. You'll be able to access the code from this GitHub repo. We will start by going to the .NET ASP.NET JavaScript services, which contains information on how to create various applications with different JavaScript frameworks, and this one is up to date to the newest .NET Core, which is newer than the one in Visual Studio templates. So here you will always find the newest versions. We will just follow the instructions of how to create a new application by installing Yeoman and then going into an empty directory and run the Yeoman ASP.NET Core SPA. I will start up the command prompt and make directory Angular2 DevExtreme. I'll go into that directory, and then if we start the Yeoman like this, we will get up the generators that are available, and we will take this one, ASP.NET Core SPA, and we will select the first one, Angular2. We will have the unit test in our project, and we will just keep the same name. Now Yeoman will create the necessary files that we need for the project, then run npm install to install all the necessary packages that are in this project, and then it will run the .NET restore to restore all the necessary packages. After Yeoman finishes, then we are ready with our application, so we will be able to just run .NET run, and it will start up the application on port 5000. So we'll just go here and select localhost 5000, and we will get up the default application from the template with these three components: home, counter, and fetch data, and we will use fetch data in our example. In JavaScript services, they offer hot module replacement and Webpack middleware, so we can just change our component and get immediately the changes in our browser. So if we open up another terminal and run code insiders, this is a daily version of Visual Studio Code. We go into our project, and we see here we have the client app, and then we go into components, fetch data, and we do changes here like hello Victor, and we save the file. And then we would expect that in our browser we would get the immediate result when the hot module replacement kicks in. But if we inspect our site, we see that we don't have any hot module replacement statement here, so it doesn't seem like it's running, and that's the case because we are running in production mode. So we need to go into development mode, because there's then the hot module replacement kicks in, like we see in the startup of our project. We see that if we are in development mode, then we will use the Webpack middleware with hot module replacement. So we will just stop .NET, and we will set the ASP.NET Core environment variable to development, like this, set ASP.NET Core development. And if we look at the set variables, we see that we have it set here. Then we need to build with Webpack again, because Webpack depends on this also. It checks if we have the webpack config, it checks if we are in environment, have the environment variable to production or development. So I will just do a webpack that will build and run our webpack script, and we have also the vendor script here, which takes all the vendor components and build it into vendor file. So I will run webpack with the config vendor also, and then we should be able to start our application again and be able to activate the hot module replacement. So .NET run, and it's up and running. So we will just reload our application, and when it starts up, we see now that HMR is connected and Angular2 is running in development mode. So if we do the changes, yeah, we'll see here that the changes are already here. And if I go into the editor and go into the same component, remove this text and press the save button, and you look here, it's immediately reloaded. Next, we will be installing the DevExtreme component into our application. So we'll go to the GitHub repo of DevExtreme Angular, and we'll just follow the installation guideline here to install the unstable or newest version of the components, and I've already done that here. And you see that we get the DevExtreme 16.2.2 and the beta 2 of DevExtreme Angular into our project. Now we will install the DevExtreme into our webpack file. So we'll go here into webpack, in the webpack config vendor, where all the vendor files are. So I will just copy in the after the bootstrap definition here, I will paste in DevExtreme distribution CSS, the common CSS, and the light compact CSS, and save this. And then we need to go to our app module, which is here under the app and app module. Here we need to tell Angular that we are going to import the DevExtreme module. So we will paste that in here. DevExtreme module from the DevExtreme Angular package. And then we need also to import it here in the imports after the universal module. We will take the DevExtreme module here and save that. And there are some problems with the preloader in Angular2, so we also have to go into the home and index page and take the pre-render module out. So we'll just be showing the loading text here. Now, after we have installed our components, we need to rebuild the webpack vendor file. So we run webpack once more to include our DevExtreme component, and we can also, after we rebuild the config vendor webpack file, we have to restart our application because it loads up the vendor file again. So we will run it again from here, and we go into the fetch data component that we already saw. We can see how it works. It will just go in the constructor, it will go and get some weather forecast data and store it into the forecasts property of the fetch data component class, and then it is shown here in this table. It loops through all the forecasts and display them in the row. and we want to display it in a DevExtreme table instead. So we will just copy that from here and paste in our DX data grid with a data source coming from the same forecasts. So we'll save that and we will go to our page, and we can see that we have some problems here, but it is checking for updates on the server and rebuilding our bundle. So it is having some problems, so we'll just refresh the component. And then we get our DevExtreme table, DX data grid here. And you don't see maybe a lot of difference between this data grid and the table here, but I will show you the difference now. So what we do now is to see what we can do with this new grid instead of just having the sorting possibility here. We'll go into jsdevexpress.com. There we'll go into web development part, because we are doing the web development part. We will open multi-purpose widgets, and here you see all the different widgets that are available in DevExtreme. We will open the data grid. And we will, for example, look at, we want some filtering. So we will go here, see filtering. And then we get an example of what filtering possibilities are available. And if we want to look at the configuration, we can just press the API reference button. And here we get all the different properties of the data grid. So here we see that we have in the JavaScript or jQuery part of this example, we see what properties are needed to have the filter row, search panel and header filter available. So that's what we want. We will go into our component. We can then just delete this old table, and now we need to start to put some properties here into the data grid. So we can take these example here, and I will just paste it in. So what we do here is we will use this input technique of Angular2 to input into the options of this component. So we will put in here show borders to get border around our grid, the filter row, the search panel and the header filter. So I'll just save this and open up our application, and then it should automatically reload, and you see that the hot module replacement bundle is rebuilding, and as soon as it does its job we will get the new grid up and running. And now we have border, we have filter possibilities and all this good stuff of DevExtreme that was not available in the old table. And if we look at search, we can search through all the grid or just individual columns, etc. So this is looking good. Next thing we want to look at is how do we interact with the DevExtreme grid in our Angular2 component. So I will just add a button below the grid. So I will copy in a horizontal line and a button. So we'll just put like this. So I'm just putting in horizontal line, a DevExtreme button with on-click method here called refresh, and the text refresh data. And this refresh method doesn't exist, so it will give us error when we click on the button. So what we need to do is to see if our button comes up on the page, which it does, and then we go into the component. We will write the refresh method here, and we will just do console log refresh just to test that our connection is working. And so the next thing is to connect the actual code here in the component to the view component here. So we will try out the refresh button and see if we get the console log in our developer tools. So we'll click here and we can see that it's working fine. So we'll go here and we will add a decorator to the class called viewChild. So that tells Angular2 that in this class we have a viewChild with and we have to import the viewChild from Angular core, and we need to import the DX data grid component from Angular, DevExtreme Angular. So I will just copy that in here, and if we will save now. We have told the Angular2 that we have a DX data grid component called data grid in our view, and then we can access it by saying this data grid, and then we get here immediately all the possible methods and properties of data grid, and we want the refresh method. So we will use the instance of this data grid, and then we see that we get the refresh method here, and we will just save that. And so what we have done here is we have now access to this data grid through the viewChild decorator of the class fetch data component that tells Angular2 about this viewChild, so we can interact with it from our code. So if we look at our application, it is rebuilding now, and if we press the button, we will see that we can now refresh the grid. There's no new data, so not much happening, but we have a method of a way to interact with the grid. Next thing we want to do is to see how we can do master detail with the DevExtreme grid. So we will just have to copy in some options from into our fetch data component. So I will just put in master detail, enable this true, and the template is called detail. Save this. So this would be, if we look at the demos from DevExtreme, we see that master detail is one of the options here in the grid. So we'll just see when we set the master detail property here to enable, we will get this little triangle here, and if we click on it we can do whatever we want in the detail part. So now we have our triangle, but not much happens. It just comes with the name of the detail because we didn't tell the grid anything what to do. So we will put in a template, and then we have to open up our go into our DX data grid and paste in a template. And what happens here is we are using the DX template. We will get the options of detail template here. So we have the options variable set, and then we can use it in our detail part. So if I save this, I will be able to get the data property of the options, and that includes all the data that's in the row that we are opening up in the detail part. And one of the columns here is summary, so we should get the summary data under the detail part. So you'll we'll see what happens. And here we go. So here we have detail and cool. That's very cool. So I will show you what more we can do here. We will need something more visual to show here, because people want something more fancy than just the text data, as we know. So I will try to put in a chart here in the detail part. So we will just remove this from our template, and I will copy in a chart, a select box and a chart. So you'll paste that in here. So I have pasted in into the template a select box which has chart series type that you can choose from, and a DX chart that accept temperature values with argument field hour and value field temp, and the temps will be the property of our class. So we will just save this and go into our component, and here we need to first of all we need to write a service that will provide us with the data. So I will go here up in the client app. I will add a new folder called service, and in this service folder I will add the file, and we will just call it temp service ts. And then here we will put in the code to get our temperature. I will tell you what it does. Save this here. First of all, we will import the injectable from Angular core, so we can put the decorator on our class that it is injectable into our component. We have export a class called temp with hour and temperature, and some test values here. And then in our class only has one method, or service has one method, get temps, and it will return the demo data here. So to incorporate this service in our component, we need to import it first from the service class. So we import both the temp class and the temp service, and then we define a variable in our component called temp, or actually temps, which is array of temperature. So here we have temps, which are array of temperature values, and then in our constructor we need to call our service temp service and get temps, but our component doesn't know about the temp service, so we inject it by putting a private variable here called temp service, and it's of the class temp service. So now we inject the service into our component so we can access it in our constructor. But we also need to tell Angular about this new provider, and providers array, so it knows about all the components that we are going to inject into our component. And the provider that we are providing here is a temp service. And also in our component we have chart series type that we access from the select box. So what we do here is we will add chart series type as a property of our class, and we will have bar, line, and spline available in our service type. So that'll be input into the items, and the value will be the default value will be the first chart service type. And then here in the settings we will use the service type value to change the different chart types. So we'll see how our component is doing. It's building now, and we see that our grid looks rather strange, so we'll try to hard refresh here. Looks a little bit better, and if we open up here, we have a chart, bar, line, and spline. So now we also have some graphical elements in our component to make our viewers a little bit happier.